The scene in Apocalypse Now where the patrol boat crew is ambushed while opening their mail is saying a lot more than you might realize. In this episode, I'll take you through this scene uncovering what's really being said. We'll also take a look at an early draft of the scene that seems to connect to Greek mythology, the historical connection to the experience of Black Americans in the war, as well as how important and weirdly difficult it was to film the boat passing under the tail section of a downed bomber plane.
Germany. With extreme prejudice. Are you an assassin or a soldier?
This episode was sponsored by Mubi. Get 30 days free by clicking the link in the description. Directly after the surreal Do Lung bridge sequence, the patrol boat crew opens the mail they received from Willard's contact there.
I was sent here from the Trang with these 3 days ago, sir. Expected you here a little sooner. This is mail for the boat.
This scene, involving the patrol boat getting ambushed and Mr. Clean getting killed, was one of the very last things that they filmed, so Coppola had the benefit of knowing how the movie would end when he shot this scene. But still, the scene that appears in the script, and the longer version that appears in the 5-hour work print, shows us some interesting details that didn't make it into the final film.
See? You can't stop me!
The men opening their mail is absent from both John Milius's 1969 draft of the script and Coppola's 1975 rewrite. Instead, in Milius's version, we get Lance talking about his backstory of joining the Navy because he couldn't be with a girl that he loved. This was the scene that was used during the casting process and was cut from later drafts.
She had this leather skirt. No. Short leather skirt.
The Do Lung Bridge was the last army outpost on the Nung River, so this mail is the last contact they'll have with anything resembling home.
Mr. L.B. Johnson, there you go. Far out, man. All right, I've been waiting for this one.
New mail also means Willard has received more information about his mission. He receives a letter revealing that he was not the first person sent on this mission. Another man was sent, and it is believed that he is now, like so many others, under Kurtz's spell. The US military intercepted a letter the man tried to send to his wife that shows just how far gone he is. It reads, "Sell the house, sell the car, sell the kids. Find someone else. Forget it. I'm never coming back. Forget it." Is there anything more terrifying than seeing the awful fate of someone just ahead of you on the same path you are on right now? Directly after, this is visually linked to a newspaper article Chef is reading about Charles Manson, a real cult leader who, like Kurtz, has dedicated followers who have committed brutal acts of violence in his name.
Charles Miller Manson ordered the slaughter of all in the home anyway as a symbol of protest. That's really weird, ain't it?
And through making this connection to Kurtz and what we'll later learn are his motivations, I can see a parallel being made by Coppola to war itself. A cause, in the eyes of leadership, however rational or insane, that is believed and brutally carried out by its followers.
It must be a temptation to be God.
And through the grander context of the Vietnam War, it puts us in a perspective where we can question our own sense of what is right by understanding that our opponent is fighting for a cause that they believe is right. And Coppola has boiled down the theme of the movie in a couple of subtle cuts. The power of cinema. At least, that's my interpretation. And keep in mind that Coppola had already filmed the Kurt scenes by this point.
Are my methods unsound?
In the 5-hour work print, instead of receiving this new part of the dossier, Willard gets a letter from a random person who is part of a pen pal program.
Dear Captain Willard, you don't know me, but I drew your name on a list of servicemen requesting someone to write them.
There's also a bit where Lance reads that his friend dinged up his surfboard back home.
What? I dinged up your board shooting the pier and had to shave off a little.
Lance acts silly with some smoke bombs like in the final movie, but he also scares the crew when he shoots a water buffalo.
Lance! Lance! Come on, what the fuck are you doing now? Lance! Why did you shoot that water buffalo? I killed water buffalo. It's a harmless animal. It wasn't following you. It's an animal. It's got life. I control the lives of every living thing that's set before my sight.
It's possible that this alerted the enemy to their presence, though the work print is missing the actual ambush. In Coppola's 1975 rewrite of the script, it is raining heavily and the crew is hiding under the boat's canopy. They are driving against the flow of the river, and floating tree trunks are slamming against the boat. Chief says that the river wants them to turn back. And this is where we get the exchange between Chief and Willard that was moved to the end of the Do Lung sequence.
Just get us upriver.
Afraid that the tree trunks are going to crack the boat's hull, they decide to detour down a small offshoot of the river, what's called a tributary. But when they go down the tributary, they find that it is completely overgrown by hyacinths, making the boat crawl through them at a snail's pace. The name Hyacinth has its origin in Greek mythology. The story goes that the beautiful Spartan prince Hyacinthos was loved by both the sun god Apollo and the wind god Zephyrus. But when Hyacinthos chose Apollo, a jealous Zephyrus caused a discus to fatally strike him. From Hyacinthos' blood emerged a flower, which Apollo named Hyacinth in his honor. Hyacinths have a couple of different symbolic meanings based on their color. One is jealousy, but another is sorrow and asking forgiveness, which could potentially be Coppola asking the audience for forgiveness for what he is about to do to Cleen. In the final film, there is a general sense on the boat that they are having fun opening their mail and reading letters from home, while Lance goofs around with colored smoke bombs. But the music is mysterious and keeps us on edge.
Purple haze, look!
Cleen plays a tape recording that his mother sent. It seems they were able to forget about the sampan massacre, but they won't be able to forget what is coming next. We get this surreal image of a boat shrouded in pink smoke, daring anyone not to notice it. Suddenly, what looks like a bottle rocket fires out of the jungle straight toward the camera. The ambush has begun. Coppola's script describes these as tracer rounds, which are bullets that have a pyrotechnic charge that ignites and helps you see where your bullets are going, so you can aim better. But it's obvious that those wouldn't be able to be practically fired at the cast. If you want, you could see them as bottle rockets to confuse the crew while they're being shot at. We don't even know if this is the NBA soldiers. It could be Kurtz's army. Either way, this is an incredible visual of colored lights and smoke trails whizzing all around the boat. When Coppola was making notes on this part of the screenplay, he wrote, "Mislead the audience into thinking they know when and where and how the violence will come, then do it sooner and differently." We see Cleen get shot before the crew realizes what's happened. All of the noise of the attack ends and all that is left is the sound of Cleen's mother on the tape recording telling him to stay safe and planning for his return.
Granny and Dad are trying to get enough money to get you a car, but don't tell them, because that's our secret.
This does not appear in either of the script drafts I've seen. It's an absolutely devastating moment.
Where's the dog? We gotta go back and get the dog!
So, to lighten the mood a bit, here's a parody of the scene from The Simpsons.
Sending your chick a Valentine, huh?
Yep.
Johnny. Johnny!
Look, you can see a photo of Kurtz next to Skinner, and Chef and Cleen are in the background. We see dead bodies and a fire on the nearby riverbank. When the patrol boat passes by scenes like this, it reminds me of a 1967 movie by Jean-Luc Godard called Weekend, which takes place in a hellish version of France where everywhere is littered with fiery car wrecks and dead bodies. A horrifying scene that has been sitting in an indifferent world waiting to be discovered is a great way of creating a hellish atmosphere. In Milius's 1969 draft, we get a spooky scene at night where they hear strange noises in the jungle and see human skulls on pikes and determine that it was not the work of the Viet Cong. Lance shoots at them and they explode, revealing that they were mined. Then they pull up to a fort and find Colonel Kurtz, and the Kurtz section begins. But we still have a ways to go. The idea was that the Do Lung Bridge was the point of no return, and shortly after Cleen's death, there is another gateway, a downed bomber plane with its tail section sticking out of the water. Beyond the bomber plane, everything is alien, and time almost seems to be going backward as things get more and more primitive. Getting the shot of the patrol boat passing under the tail section was very difficult. Interestingly, production designer Dean Tavoularis said that they based it on drawings that they got from the toy company Mattel. Mattel owns Hot Wheels, so I'm kind of wondering if it was from a Hot Wheels toy. They built it, quote, piece by piece in a little fabrication shop in Manila, and then assembled it out on location. Coppola had wanted it to be covered in monkeys, but it would be too difficult to keep them from running away. So they leashed a few to the top, but occasionally one would fall and dangle from the leash, ruining the shot. The weather was difficult the first time they shot it, and they had to reshoot because you could see the beam holding the tail section in place. Coppola wanted it to feel like a surreal Disneyland ride for the patrol boat crew.
Fuck, man, this is better than Disneyland.
I remember when I wrote that scene, that the idea, and of course you write stuff that can never be done, but I wrote that they could go under the tail of the B-52 and the river widens and there's all these beautiful waterfowl kind of circling. And then at the end of where it widens, it goes dark again into this sort of, the trees come over, and it's like a hole, and it's going to hell.
In Coppola's 1975 rewrite, there's no funeral scene. Instead, Chief places Clean's body into a plastic sack and somberly pushes it into the river. In the work print, we can see them wrapping Clean's body as they arrive at the French plantation. The funeral scene didn't appear in the theatrical version of the movie, and was added back in for the Redux version during the French plantation sequence that follows this scene. Coppola explained to Lawrence Fishburne that Clean's funeral was meant as a tribute to the youth of America.
How old are you?
17.
Almost 10,000 US soldiers under the age of 20 died in the war, and alongside that, there's the added context of Black Americans fighting and dying in a war for a country that didn't treat them well at home, and Black Americans were more likely to be drafted into the war than white Americans, with 16.3% of draftees being Black, while the Black population in America was 11%.
Drafted or you volunteer for this?
Drafted.
Ace Magalore 2519 made a great observation about the previous scene at the Dolung Bridge, saying, "A detail I love about the bridge scene is how it's undoubtedly the most actively dangerous part of the river we see, and is primarily stationed with Black men. I think it acts as a reference to how the government would often view minority soldiers as even more disposable than white ones, and how they'd often be shipped to the most dangerous areas of the war."
You know, here we were, me, in this case me and Larry, both Black, and here we are fighting for a country, and I lose him. Reflecting on the fact that there were more Blacks in that war, you know, and perhaps the inequity of that, you know. And that was very good juice and substance to use emotionally right there.
This episode's companion PDF features some more context on the involvement of Black Americans in the Vietnam War to better understand how it's referenced in the movie. It's just $1, and it'll go into the $5 archive on Patreon when my next video goes up. I was reading this really interesting article in the newest issue of Notebook about the issues with Warner Brothers releasing movies in theaters and streaming on HBO Max at the same time in 2020, and getting sued by people like Christopher Nolan.
And now they're being used as a loss leader for the streaming service, for the fledgling streaming service.
Partially because of that, Warner Media was bought by Discovery.
This is a fantastic collection of assets.
There was a nearly finished Batgirl movie and a Scooby-Doo movie that were shelved after the merger, because Discovery was able to reassess the value of assets and, in order to save money, decided that these movies were worth nothing, but they had to prove it by not monetizing them. So the movies were put on the shelf, never to be seen. This is also why a bunch of content was removed from HBO Max. The story gets even weirder, and you can read about it in issue 3 of Notebook, the print-only magazine devoted to the art and culture of cinema, created, prepared, and published by Mubi. This issue is called The Flap of a Butterfly's Wings, and is devoted to the depiction of weather inside and outside of movies, and the ways in which film culture and industry can be sabotaged. There are articles about shooting in extreme weather, tips on how to make a movie that is unstreamable, and tons more. A subscription is $40 a year and comes with 2 huge issues and 2 exclusive surprise gifts for subscribers. Shipping is free wherever you are. You can subscribe at movie.com/magazine, and the current issue can be found in select stores around the world. And as always, you can also head to movie.com/CinemaTyler and stream Mubi's incredible collection of movies free for 30 days. On the next episode of Making Apocalypse Now, we are taking a look at the expensive and hectic French plantation sequence that was cut from the theatrical release and seen for the first time when the Redux version was released. This video is particularly fascinating and gets into Coppola's method for creating scenes.